Hello, welcome once again to Talking Drum. We're at something else a bit north, a casually named festival near Wales, I think we are, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely.
I've been driving for about 4 hours, so I'm a little bit lost as to where we are now. I got here and I was sort of settling down, getting into the swing of things, and I suddenly saw the band that you were playing in play, and I thought, that looks like an interesting band. And I saw you drumming, and I thought, right, I've got to film that, and I've got to interview. This is Ellie. And you were playing in a band called?
Rita Lynch today, but I play in 2 other bands, and I've depped for many other bands as well.
This is what surprised me, because I thought what I'm going to be talking about is you in the band and all the things you do in the band and how you develop your technique for playing in the band. But it's a process that's happened over a week, because you're definitely the drummer, aren't you?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
So that was we'll talk about that band first, and we'll talk about your other stuff afterwards. That was a really, really classic 3-piece kind of punk rocky band. Just one person singing, no backing vocals, bass, guitar, drums. That puts a lot of weight on the drums to contribute to the overall sound.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
How did that in any way change the way that you approach that band compared to, say, a 6 or 7-piece band that I know you're playing?
Because of my other band, we don't have a bass player, so it was very weird playing with a bass player. I was like, oh, I can hear bass, like, what's going on? But because I already play in a 3-piece band, it kind of had the same kind of way I approached it as like I have with my other stuff, but it was weird playing with bass. But I kind of did what I do, and I just, I listen to the tracks, I try and rehearse with the band, and I just kind of not copy the drummer's like pieces word for word, dot for dot, but I try and get as near as I can, or I play like the simplified version. As long as it's in time, then I try my best to make it the best it can be.
Now, that is really interesting that you said that there wasn't a bass player in your other band, because I was watching and there was a bit where the player wasn't playing, but it was you and the guitarist filling up the sound. And it kind of went through my head of, with that technique that you've got, I'm not sure you need a bass player as much as most bands.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Because of my other band, we don't have a bass player, so I'm literally used to playing with a singer and a guitarist, and I pretty much make up half of the bass. And in my other band, the guitarist goes through a bass amp, so it kind of flattens the sound. But it's nice to play with a bass player, because my dad's a bass player as well. Yeah. But it's weird and good at the same time. It kind of helps me play with like other instruments and that kind of thing, because I don't usually play with a bass player. But it helped me lock in with the song a lot more, and practice the song as a whole, listening to the bass, the guitar, and the vocals, so I could practice it all together.
So your other band, which you said is a all-girls rock band, but only three.
There's only 3 of us. So
in this lineup we had bass, guitar, singer, and drums. What's the lineup in your other band?
Vocals, guitar, and drums. So there's just a vocalist who just sings, guitarist, and me. So that's it.
I've seen a couple of bands where there's no bass player, or I think I saw one with a similar lineup, which was drums and the drummer was singing and then a guitarist.
Yeah.
They were so shocking in how full the sound was that we were backstage, we heard the band playing, we thought it's time to go and film them.
Yeah.
For one of my other projects. We went around the front, and me and the other cameraman looked at each other, because we couldn't work out what happened to the band.
On?
Where's the band gone?
Yeah.
And then we looked, and there just seemed to be like a couple of blokes on stage.
Yeah.
And then we realised that was where all of the sound was coming from. And it does need a drummer that can fill that sound. So there are a couple of things about your technique that really got me. The first was that you weren't really playing one of those really short backbeats that really only lasts like a bar, 2 bars, with an occasional fill every 8 or 16 bars. A lot of your patterns, and I would say they were patterns, seem to last kind of 4 bars, so it would be...
They're very sustained.
Yeah, even though there's a backbeat, there is always almost like a part at the end of it that rounds it off, that adds something to the rhythm. So even the most strict beats that you were playing had something about them that rounded it out and made it fuller. Is that something that comes from playing in a 3-piece band?
I wouldn't say it comes from that, but because I've been drumming for almost 9 years. My God, I didn't realise it was that long. 9 years. So I started at a very young age, and I think, like, because I've tried to play everything dot for dot and stuff. But I just kind of, I don't know, just playing as best as I can really, and getting my technique and not overplaying stuff as such. Like if it sounds fine with a basic drum beat, then play it, but you don't want to. You don't want it to be a drum solo for 3 minutes, do you? So I just try and play it as simple as I can. And, if I feels like it needs a little bit of, spiciness as such, then I'll add it in, but I won't add it in unnecessarily, if that makes sense.
It does, because that's the other thing I noticed was I wouldn't have said you really played, it wasn't 3 bars and a fill, 3 bars and a fill, 3 bars and a fill, which I used to do it when I first started drumming. I'd do that because I'd be losing the beat after 3 bars.
Like, oh, we got to do this now.
Yeah, I do a fill as a kind of way of refreshing the rhythm that I'm trying to play. It did feel like what you were doing was something that lasted a lot longer. Another thing that I saw you do was, I saw you do lots of floor tom work.
Yeah.
Which is kind of to be expected if you're trying to fill out the sound when you haven't got bass players. But I also saw you doing things that were kind of like half a crush roll with the snare as well.
Oh, I was doing, I think I know what song you're on about. I was doing a kind of triplet thing, but I was going but I kind of like spread it around the kit a bit because I didn't want it just be all the time. So I tried to add a bit of variation, like playing the same thing but playing it on different stuff, which I try and do sometimes. Like if a song is playing the same thing like over and over again, then I try and play that same thing but on other toms and other parts of the kit, just so it adds a bit more variation. So that's what I try and do to build it up as such.
Now, so I was watching all of this and I was watching your hands, and that was all fine. And that it was he wasn't a busy bass player, but he was a very full bass player. Lots of eights.
He keeps it together.
Yeah, he keeps it. So it took a little while for me to register what you were doing with your right foot, which was what was happening with the bass, and that was you were producing a really full bass rhythm.
Yeah.
That felt, I wouldn't say independent, but had a life of its own and a kind of a value of its own.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
How do you get that level of sustained creativity with your right foot?
To be honest, once I get a groove out. So if I'm learning a song, I will listen to the track over and over and over and over again until I basically kill it, and I play along with it. And then I try and listen to the bass drum and see if it like locks in with the bass. And if it does, then brilliant. But I try and add like other beats as well, not to make it over busy, but just to give it some more punch as such. But as long as it's not like distracting the vocals, or if it's overpowering stuff, then I just kind of try and make it slightly more punchy and slightly more like in your face kind of thing. So.
Did it take any kind of practice techniques or any kind of work to get that level of independence on the bass drum?
Oh God. I think it was like 2 years ago I started learning like double pedal, like double pedal, because I was going through a metal phase and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do double pedal brrr, and all this stuff. So I started doing that, and that's strengthened my right foot up so much that I can literally just go da 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 with my right foot. Right. So I think in that respect, like doing double pedal like does work up your right foot, and then you've got more power with it, so then you can do more beats, but not as such as that you're just going da 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 all the time, but just so that you can make it sound fuller with the necessary amount of beats, if that makes sense. But as long as it fits into the groove and the whole sense of the song, then I don't see like why.
There was a lot there, and there was more than I think a lot of drummers could sustain with one pedal. Yeah. But it wasn't so full that it was overbearing.
Yeah,
it worked. Every beat that you played worked with the song. Now that drum kit there was one that I think is generously donated by One Eye God.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it says it on the yeah.
What I thought was interesting was the way the sound, how nice it sounded, and that was because it had, I think, in terms of what you were doing, it has a full skin on the front. Yeah. A mic on the front, and I assume maybe a mic at the back.
No, there wasn't a mic at the back.
So it was just my
foot just pounding at it.
Which is, if you think about, I mean, if I was putting a backline together, I might not be quite so. I wouldn't have necessarily chosen a drum kit with quite such an individual sound to it, in the sense that you can't get a microphone right inside to fit onto the back. So it's like at the back.
Right at the back, yeah.
But I thought it sounded great, and I was wondering what your normal
like setup is
like,
because like my kit at home's a Yamaha YD. It's very old and I got it secondhand, but I still use it today, so I don't have enough money to get another one. But usually if I go out gigging and I take my whole kit with me, my front skin doesn't have a hole in, which is a bit of a pain because I like to have it a hole in so you can just stick the microphone in, but I literally just take the front off and just shove it right to the back where my foot goes so you can get that bass. But apart from that, I just have bass, snare, hi-hat, high, floor, and sometimes I have a double pedal depending what I'm doing. But I don't try and use it all the time. I try and use it sparingly as such, and then I have a crash and a ride.
Yeah.
And that's
so have you
it.
got one tom? Have you got? I mean, on.
Oh, I have one. I did start off with two, but then I kind of wanted to limit myself as such to like increase my creativity of what I had. So I was doing, in one of the songs E in my other band, I literally just do that, but I do this really complicated build up, and I've only got those two toms to do it with. So I'm trying to, like, with less equipment as possible, be as creative as possible.
In the past, I've seen people with drum kits that have got a resonating head with no hole on the front of it on the bass drum. And from a sound engineer's point of view, I kind of think, oh, that must be a nightmare. But I've got to say, I thought it really enhanced the sound of what you were doing.
Yeah.
And it's worth actually experimenting to see if you can't get a balance of maybe getting a mic around the front and a mic around the back.
Just to get the most of the sound.
Yeah, because it was quite a full sound, and I wouldn't say there was a ring to it, but there was a depth, and there was a slightly longer sustain than you would get if it was right on the batter head. So it is something. I know you end up taking the head off, but I'd say keep the head on.
Yeah.
And just see how angry the sound engineers get. And if they don't
They're
get
like,
too
what
angry,
are you doing?
if they don't get too angry, and you say this is my sound, then see if you can see if that actually gets anywhere. Because I think it worked really well. I have worked
because I have depth for my dad's bands and stuff, and I have had to take my whole kit. I have left like the bass head on, and they've been fine with it. But if I'm gigging with Flowerpot, which is my other band, I take it off just because it means I have less stuff to bring, because I have a lot of other stuff to take as well. So
you can always store things in a bass drum.
Exactly.
So you just played in a three-piece band. Your band, I say your band is a three-piece band. But you also play in your dad's band. Your dad's a bass player, which makes you from a musical family. But that's a much bigger band. That's like 6 or 7
my dad's in 3 bands. He's in a progressive folk rock band. Well, I wouldn't say it's rock, but it's progressive folk. And they haven't done any gigs as such, but they're trying to get an album together and sort all that jazz out and stuff. He's got a full-time job as well, so it's hard balancing the two. And then he's got a covers band, which is a 6-piece or 7-piece. And sometimes, because their drummer doesn't like doing like the pub gigs, which are a bit not as great as the nice ones. I dep in that sense because their drummer doesn't want to do those ones. So I'm like, well, it's extra money for me, so I'll do it, and I don't mind doing it. So I step in for the pub gigs and stuff. And then his other band, which is a 3/4-piece, it's the same band but with an extra person called Roadhouse. And sometimes their drummer can't do a gig, so they're like, oh, Ellie, can you step in? So, I do that, and I don't have any practice because their songs are quite simple. It's just the stops and the starts and the start and ends. But apart from that, I try and help my dad out as much as possible.
There's a thing of, there is one advantage of being in covers bands and wedding bands is that it pays a lot better.
It does, definitely.
Is there any musical value to be had from playing in a straight covers band? In terms of your development?
Yeah. I would say that it helps my stamina because I can play for like 45 minutes non-stop, but I can't do loads of complicated things. It just helps my stamina gradually increase as such, because the covers bands like my dad's in do like a slot for 45 minutes, which is quite upbeat, but it's very simple. And then they have like a half an hour break or whatever, and then they do the same thing again. So I think it helps develop my stamina in that way, but it doesn't help like my development to learn new things. It just helps my stamina and like helps me just play faster and play for longer.
It's good for your bank balance.
Yeah, definitely. The extra cash, I need it.
Well, Ellie, thank you very much. That was a fantastic interview.
Been a pleasure.